Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Just the Discs. Today we are talking about some Imprint films releases. These were for the month of August bundle. And we got a whole lot of Noir, which is great. We have a box set and a solo release, which could have been a cool part of the box set. I understand they had a limited space. They wanted to put 4 discs in that, but I really did like, I'll start with the single, the Scarlet Arrow. And the Scarlet Hour is from 1956. It is directed by Michael Curtiz, classic film director. Casablanca, tons of stuff. He's actually kind of a favorite of mine, despite the fact that he was rather notorious as something of a tyrant on set on some occasions, including this film, which is too bad. This is a co-story, co-scripted by Frank Tashlin film, another filmmaker that I like very much, and who I associate more with comedies, and this is not a comedy at all, but rather an LA noir. But it's a really interesting mix of stuff. It is, I'll show you the disc really quick. There is the inside. And so it is a really interesting mix of a couple different plot lines. You've got sort of a femme fatale, manipulating wife plot line, and kind of a heist plot line that are combined in a really interesting way, I thought, and makes for just a sturdy noir all around. I guess I kind of like it when you see a movie and you're like, I know what this is, and then suddenly they throw something in there and you're like, oh, we're gonna go a little different direction with this. And so it's fun. It includes a lot of first-time performances, debut performances, as far as I can tell. Carol Omart, really great as the femme fatale wife of, I'm trying to think, James Gregory is the husband, and he's a great character actor you'll recognize. I think he was the cop in Nightfall. He's just sort of a classic fly-in-the-ointment kind of noir guy that I really dig. And so he plays the husband in this, and she's his younger wife. He runs a company that does real estate development, I think. And Tom Tryon, who was in I Married a Monster from Outer Space. That's how I always remember him. He's the husband in that. This is his first movie. He's sort of the young guy that she's involved with, and there's some fun twists and turns with that. Elaine Stritch is really great. Apparently was a debut film for her. She was the toast of Broadway at this time, according to Alan K. Rohde's commentary. And then David Lewis, who is from The Apartment. He's Mr. Kirkaby, if you remember that character. You'll recognize him, and his voice is very distinct. So all 4 of them, I think, are getting their debuts in this film, and it's pretty neat to see that. As I said, Carol Ormart, really, really good in this. Bears more than a passing resemblance to Barbara Stanwyck, and I guess Curtiz was a little bit of a jerk to her, which is unfortunate. There's some good stories about that in the commentary, but anyway, she would go on to be in House on Haunted Hill, Spider Baby, and E.G. Marshall is in this as one of the cops, and I'm trying to think. Nat King Cole has a nice performance in the film. There's lots of cool stuff to this. I don't want to get too deep into the plot because I really like the story, and I'd rather that you see it fresh, Just know that there's a couple different things going on, and I think it turns out pretty cool, the way it goes. Like, it's one of those movies where they set up an idea of, like, what the climax of the movie is going to be, and then they shoot past it because they actually have a moment of, like, oh, what I thought was going to happen in the end happened in the middle. Now where are we going? And things continue to unfold in that way. So very good stuff. And Tom Tryon is a very good sort of everyman. So yeah, this has a commentary with Alan K. Rohde, Film Noir Foundation board member Alan K. Rohde. He's on a bunch of these, and it's great to have that continuity because he's a really good commentator. He's up there with Eddie Muller, just really knows his stuff, fills the track well, makes his own aside kind of comments, and he's a lot of fun. This looked really good. It doesn't say anything about the transfer, but I was impressed with how this looked. Black and white transfer. So then we move on to the really cool Essential Noir Collection 3 box set. And this has that classic design, the cover or the box design that they've used for the previous 2 collections, and those have both been fun. So let's talk about what's in here. All right. Okay, let's do it like this. Yes. Okay. So I will start with Turning Point, which is from 1952, directed by William Dieterle. And this one really surprised me. Maybe my favorite of this whole set, if I'm being honest. And it is also, just as an aside, released from Kino Lorber. And you get the Alan K. Rode commentary on this one and this one. But the imprint also includes a writer, broadcaster, journalist, Barry Forshaw on the Turning Point, about 20 minutes. So you get a little extra something on this one. But the same commentary on both the Kino and the imprint film's release. Now, so this one is kind of a crime syndicate takedown movie with William Holden, Edmund O'Brien, Alexis Smith, Ed Begley Jr., and then some thugs played by Russell Johnson, the professor from Gilligan's Island, and Neville Brand makes a nice appearance at the end. It's a really cool sort of a companion piece to Sunset Boulevard in that William Holden plays the same kind of cynical writer type character as he does in Sunset Boulevard, but he's a little bit more aggressive and self-righteous here as he's a reporter that gets sort of pulled into it's a committee, it's a task force, basically a crime task force being headed up by a special prosecutor played by Edmund O'Brien in a really good performance. And he pulls in a bunch of his old friends and then his dad as a cop to try and help take down this crime boss who's, hiding a lot of, criminal element stuff in legitimate businesses, and he will do anything to protect them. And it's played by Ed Begley Sr., Ed Begley Jr.'s dad, and he's really good in this. Like, he is not just sort of a mustache twirling villain. Like, he's got some legit concerns about his empire and what could happen, and so it plays really well. And it has, again, a great like last real appearance by Neville Brand as a great thug. And I really dig, that he shows up in the last act. But uses a lot of the L.A. Bunker Hill neighborhood. The Angel's Flight train is used, classic noir stuff. But Edmund O'Brien really good as this sort of idealistic prosecutor. Alexis Smith is his crusading socialite girlfriend who gets involved, and William Holden is Jerry McKibben, a crime beat reporter. And he's just got some good moments, some fun speeches, and it's got some twists and turns to it. And this is, like I said, probably my favorite of this set. I really dug this one more than I even expected to. Again, Alan K. Rode commentary and Barry Forshaw also there. So that's the first one. Then we have The Strange Love of Martha Ivers. This one from 1946. Starring Barbara Stanwyck, Van Heflin, Elizabeth Scott, and Kirk Douglas in his debut film. This one also available from Kino Lorber. Also includes the Alan K. Rode commentary, which is included here. But this has some other stuff, including an introduction with Kirk Douglas and Alan K. Rode. That's about 8 minutes. It's post-stroke, so it's a little tough to watch, but he recalls this film as his debut. Barbara Stanwyck from Stage to Screen legend with Alan K. Rode featurette, and Domestic Terror, Barbara Stanwyck, and Gothic Noir played by Kat Ellinger, and Barbara Stanwyck straight down the line documentary. So you do get a heck of a lot more in the imprint films versus the commentary that you get on the Kino Lorber, but all these are region free, so you have your pick of where you want to go with each of these films. But I just want to make people aware, if you don't want to import, you can get these films, and they're both very good from Kino Lorber as well. So this one, sort of a classic noir setup. Again, Kirk Douglas's debut film, and it has sort of an intro where you get to see these kids, one of them that will later be played by Stanwyck, and another that will later be played by Kirk Douglas and Van Heflin as well, as kids, and kind of the young Martha Ivers going through some trouble with her aunt, who is very rich, and she keeps running away, and she runs away with this sort of street kid played later by Van Heflin, and then this guy who's her tutor and his son, who will later be played by Kirk Douglas, are trying to sort of finagle some money out of the aunt, and there's an accident, and we jump forward in time, I want to say about 17 or 18 years, and the Van Heflin character returns to what is Ivers town. This woman was so rich she owned the town, and now Barbara Stanwyck is running it. Kirk Douglas is her husband, and they are suspect that he has returned for potential blackmail purposes, and I won't go into what that's about. But he ends up meeting Elizabeth Scott, who's just sort of a girl fresh out of jail that he hits it off with. Just his car breaks down, and that's the only reason he ends up in Iverstown. And so he meets Elizabeth Scott. He wants to ask Kirk Douglas's character, who's like the big DA in town, for a favor, and that kind of, tees up the events that we see play out. But it's a good, solid noir, maybe a little long for my taste, but still, great performances. I love Van Heflin. I'm a huge fan of his. And Barbara Stanwyck is great. Elizabeth Scott is great. And Kirk Douglas is very good in this first role. So, script by Robert Rossen, which is kind of cool. And, there's, like the commentary, Alan K. Rhodey, very good. He covers a lot of ground in that commentary, even talking about the score by Miklos Rozsa right at the top. Like, there's some great stuff in this track, really good stuff. So, a 1080p high definition presentation from a 4K scan by Paramount Pictures. And I think that's the same as the Kino, 4K scan of the 35 millimeter fine grain. So that's Strange Love of Martha Ivers. Then we go on to another Barbara Stanwyck. This one I had never seen and was very interesting. No Man of Her Own. This is from 1950. And William Irish directed. Based on the novel by Mitchell Leisen directed. This one is fascinating. It is a imposter noir, if you will. Barbara Stanwyck has sort of there's like a flashback setup, classic noir stuff, and we get to see sort of her, obviously in a family way, trying to go and see the man that got her pregnant, and it's just a brutal scene where he slides like a train ticket and $5 under the door, and she goes on this train, and there's a crash, but she has met this well-to-do couple, and the woman is sitting in the train car with her and asks her to put on her wedding ring for some reason because she doesn't want to lose it. And then the train crashes, and the couple is killed, and she is taken in as the woman because the woman's family has never met this wife character, this pregnant wife. They take her in as the wife. They start to raise the baby as their grandchild. This is a very well-to-do family. And her, I guess, the uncle of the brother, the husband that died, seems suspect of her immediately. And so you have sort of a tension there, like, are you really who you say you are? And it kind of expands out from there. But a good performance by Barbara Stanwyck, and John Lund, I think, is the uncle, the brother character. But yeah, really interesting. Again, imposter kind of noir. Will I be found out kind of scenario. And it's definitely shown that the Stanwyck character is struggling with the idea of even doing this whole thing. So they make it not an easy sort of, she's not conniving about it. It's just sort of something that happens, and she kind of realizes maybe it's best for her baby and she doesn't know what to do. So it's played well for the dramatic. Another apartment connection, a small part for William Waterman, who is Mr. Vanderhoff, another one of the executives from the apartment. And the bad guy in this is really bad. I don't want to go into what happens there and how that gets involved, but he's a real scumbag. 1080p high definition presentation from Paramount. Audio commentary by film historian Drew Casper. Writer, broadcaster, and journalist Barry Forshaw on No Man of Her Own. The Screen Directors Playhouse, No Man of Her Own radio drama starring Barbara Stanwyck and Lyle Betcher. And a trailer. And then lastly, we have The Desperate Hours from 1955, starring Humphrey Bogart and Frederick March. And this one is something of a hostage drama. It's a bunch of escaped convicts get out and terrorize a suburban family by holding them hostage in their house. For some reason, I remember this as a restaurant, but I think I conflate this movie with High Sierra for some reason. But yeah, it's, Bogart is sort of the leader, and this family is being held captive, and it's real tense. Arthur Kennedy stars, Martha Scott, Gig Young. I'm trying to think who the other Whit Bissell's in this. And it gets Beverly Garland. It gets built up to be pretty intense, and it's an intense performance by Bogart. But there are definitely other Bogart films I enjoy more than this one, I'll be honest. But this is directed by William Wyler, so it's definitely of interest to film fans out there for sure. But yeah, really tense, violent, scary movie for 1955. This one includes an audio commentary by film historian Kevin Lyons and Barry Forshaw on The Desperate Hours as well. High definition presentation by Paramount. So that will do it for the Film Noir, Essential Film Noir Collection 3 set. We have a couple cool double disc sets. I'll start with this one here. On the Beach from 1959. This is Stanley Kramer's film, starring Gregory Peck, Ava Gardner, Fred Astaire, Anthony Perkins. This movie is, I don't know how to put it another way, one of the great bummer movies of all time. And that's not meant to be as a spoiler too much, but just be aware that's what it is, and that's part of the reason I think a lot of people have come to love it over the years, because it is so sort of uncompromising. It's comes out in 1959. It's based on a novel by Neville Shute, and it's set in 1964. The idea is that World War III has devastated the Northern Hemisphere, and it's killed everybody in the Northern Hemisphere, as far as we know, due to the nuclear fallout. And the only habitable areas are in sort of the Southern Hemisphere, but the air currents are slowly carrying the fallout south. So it's just sort of a matter of time. And there's an U.S. sub manned by Gregory Peck and Anthony Perkins. They're part of this. I think they're a U.S. sub. I'm pretty sure it's U.S. and not. I think they're stationed on Australia, or I don't know if they're getting down there. What's happened? I can't remember how they end up in Australia. But it was a big deal to this film coming out when it did, and the filming in Australia was a big deal in terms of the stars that came, and Ava Gardner and Fred Astaire and Anthony Perkins and all these folks being in Australia was a big deal. There's actually a featurette showing them going to Australia, which is kind of a neat feature on this disc, this double set. But this movie's really good. Like, I really like this movie because it is all about the submarine. I guess it's now under the Royal Australian Navy Command. It's ordered to sail north to check out this radio signal that they're hearing. There could be some kind of distress signal coming from somewhere up north, and so it's hard to know what that's about, and they investigate that. There's some other things that happen, but the idea is that people are getting ready for the end. And so it's, among films like Threads and Where the Wind Blows, where it's just a darker movie, And so that can be tough for some people, but I think the way it's handled is really interesting. There's lots of little details, like when Anthony Perkins is he's married, he has a small child with his wife, and he goes into town. He goes into Melbourne, I think, and everybody's riding bikes or using a horse-drawn carriage because there's no more gas. Petrol has been wiped out. So that's a cool little detail. And there's lots of cool like empty streets shots they've got some. There's one in San Francisco, and you get to see the Golden Gate Bridge completely empty, and some other things that I won't tie the specific plot elements into, but it is a neat thing when you see that. But they do bring up lots of ideas about how civilization would deal with this kind of thing. And there's like suicide pills, and there's other things that are brought up. Fred Astaire plays a scientist in the film, and it was one of his earlier dramatic roles, although I feel like he had a few, thinking of like Blue Skies and some other films, but it was definitely a kind of a risk that Stanley Kramer, who was a big-time filmmaker of this period, a guy who did a lot of message movies, if you will, and I think this is one of my favorite of his message movies. And the fact that they made this at a studio is pretty cool. The U.S. Navy did not cooperate a whole lot. They had to use an Australian submarine because the U.S. Navy didn't care for the message of the film about this nuclear fallout and all this. But it's got some really cool stuff in it, some romance, some just human drama that I think is really fascinating. And so it's one of those movies that I'm glad got a really nice special edition. So this set has 2 discs in it, and you have your On the Beach disc, and you have your Fallout disc, and you also get a nice book that comes with it. So it's one of those really nice double disc sets. So Fallout, for those that don't know, is the first film on the work of British novelist Nevil Shute, famous for his international bestsellers A Town Like Alice and On the Beach. And it's a fascinating exploration into his life and influences. It focuses on the writing of On the Beach and goes behind the scenes of the Stanley Kramer famous Hollywood film starring Ava Gardner, Gregory Peck, which was shot in Australia in 1959, directed by Lawrence Johnston. So it's a full sort of making of, sort of, dealing with the author himself. It's a nice complement to the film On the Beach. And it even has an interview with the director as well. But yeah, Ava Gardner, Gregory Peck, very good in this film, as is Fred Astaire. I really enjoy all their performances. Anthony Perkins is excellent also. This is a really nice special edition. Has lots of cool stuff here. You have an audio commentary with film scholar Adrian Martin. You have another commentary with On the Beach, what's written by On the Beach expert Dr. Philip Davey and read by actor Douglas Hansel. That's an older track. I really enjoyed that track, by the way. It's a little spare, so it allows certain scenes to play, but it has lots of great information about the cast and the production, and I really dug that track. That's really good stuff. Archival audio interview with Gregory Peck by Lawrence Johnston, of course, director of Fallout from 1997. Newly discovered outtakes, location footage, and costume test. Big stars arrive in Melbourne newsreel. That's what I was talking about before. Making of On the Beach, 8mm amateur footage capturing location filming. Kim Newman on Apocalypse Cinema, a really great little 20-minute piece Kim Newman does about On the Beach, but also about other, cinema of this type. And he's written a whole book on it, so he definitely knows what he's talking about. But, he talks about films like 5, The Day the World Ended, Last Woman on Earth, The World, the Flesh, and the Devil, Panic in the Year Zero, up on through Mad Max. So he gives a whole progression. And he also talks about the On the Beach source novel and the conversation surrounding that when it came out, and how scientists saying that this wouldn't necessarily happen the way it's supposed to. And anyway, he calls it a solemn apocalypse movie. And it's a good Kim Newman interview. Something called No Safety Nets, Human Horror on the Beach, and On the Beach, Kat Ellinger video essay, talking about Stanley Kramer and his message pictures, background for Atomic Fear, and she talks about Threads and When the Wind Blows. It's about 24 minutes. And then there's let's see here, Clothes to Die For, On the Beach, Costumes of Ava Gardner, a video essay about the costumes, which is actually really interesting to hear about all the costumes in the film. And I want to say that's about it. Photo galleries and stuff. But yeah, it's a really nice double disc set for a movie that I think definitely has a following, rightfully so, because it's just a fascinating film with a great ending, or a powerful ending. And yeah, so that's On the Beach. And then, got a couple more here. One, Secret of the Incas. This is a really fun, sort of a, I mean, it's a precursor to Raiders of the Lost Ark. I know it as one of the influences on that film, and a movie that Charlton Heston stars in. He wears a fedora and sort of a jacket, very much like Indiana Jones. And I know that this was a movie that Spielberg, along with the movie China with Alan Ladd, saw as at least costume, sort of archetypes, as well as this one is kind of a character archetype, because Charlton Heston plays Harry Steele, and he's a tour guide in Cusco, Peru, but he's trying to find this Inca treasure. He has this ancient carved stone, which gives the location of this sunburst Inca treasure, but he can't travel there, so he basically has to con somebody into helping him get there. And he's also being sort of menaced by Thomas Mitchell's character, Ed Morgan, who also wants the treasure. And then there's a character played by Nicole Morey who arrives that may give him a line on a plane. And he's very, I don't know about lovable scoundrel, but he's a pretty fun scoundrel in this movie. And Robert Young is also an archaeological... He's heading an archaeological expedition, heading up that thing, looking to enter the tomb where the sunburst is said to be located. And so there's all these little converging plots, and it's fun. It's one that I have been a fan of for a while, and I think it's his Blu-ray debut. And Heston's very fun in it, and it has an audio commentary with film historian Philippa Berry, Raiders of the Incas, an interview with film historian and writer Chris Pajali on the influences on Raiders of the Lost Ark. So you have a whole piece all about the influence on Raiders, as well as a Lux Radio Theater version with Charlton Heston and Nicole Morey. Very nice. And a 1080p high-definition presentation by Paramount, so you get a new transfer, and it looks very good. I'm just a fan of this, as the films that preceded Raiders are movies that I dig, so... This one I was really excited to see. Actually, one of my favorites of this group coming out this month is Secret of the Incas from 1954. Yeah, good stuff. And then last but not least, we have another double disc set. This is The World of Suzie Wong, starring Nancy Kwan and William Holden again. And this one is sort of about an American architect, played by Holden, who moves to Hong Kong to see if he can become a painter. And he meets, I guess, a sex worker, played by Nancy Kwan, and they sort of start to have this relationship, and there are complications, and it looks very good. It looks like an interesting film, and this is definitely one that they've given a nice double disc set to. It includes the film itself and a 2008 feature documentary, Hollywood Chinese, which brings together a captivating portrait of filmmakers and iconic images for a high-spirited look at how the Chinese have been imagined in the movies, from silent classics to the contemporary blockbusters. But yeah, World of Suzie Wong is about a struggling down on his luck American artist meets a beautiful Chinese prostitute, played by Nancy Kwan, who captures his heart and becomes his model. Friendship deepens to love, but complications threaten their future together. So that is your basic plot for that one. Again, a very nice double disc set. And you have the original feature there. And this one includes new transfer audio commentary by film historian Lee Pfeiffer and Paul Scrabo. Kaleidoscope of Colors, The Fashion of Suzie Wong video essay by Alyssa Rose. To Whom It May Concern, Ka-Shen's Journey, Brian Jameson's feature documentary on the life of actress Nancy Kwan. Very cool that is included on this disc. Brian Jameson used to be part of one of the founders of Twilight Time, and definitely had his outings as a filmmaker. So very cool to see that whole documentary about Nancy Kwan, who I'm a fan of. Walking the Edge, if you don't know that film, she's a big part of that and very enjoyable in that. This is one of her, if not her breakout, one of her earliest performances. So that's cool that they include that documentary. And then the Hollywood Chinese documentary. And it includes Nancy Wong on the world of Suzie Wong, interview excerpts from an interview for Hollywood Chinese. So you have some excerpts of her specifically from this documentary. So that's a nice double disc set for fans of the world of Suzie Wong from 1960. But that will do it for this round of Imprint films. I thank you for your time. Head on over to Via Vision's website. I'll leave a link below for where you can check out the Imprint films releases, what's upcoming, what's available to order. These are limited editions. They do tend to sell out. So if anything in particular is of interest, check out their website. Check out Diabolic DVD, who also stocks them. Import CDs stocks them, as well as Orbit DVD. And, Amazon US eventually will get a lot of this stuff too, if the price of importing seems too high. I mean, these will be a little more expensive because they are special edition discs and they're coming from Australia, but they are region free and worth picking up, as I've covered as many of these as I could on this channel so far, and it's always been high quality stuff. So I'm really psyched about the Noir output this month. Definitely recommend checking those out, as well as Secret of the Incas. Anyway, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.